Zombie Reddit, today's story is...
My sister-in-law refused the car I gave her to help her after her divorce, but what she demanded next left the whole family shocked. Several months ago, my husband's sister ended her marriage. Her husband threw her out of the house after she insisted on making their union something open. For context, my sister-in-law has twin young children. She became pregnant at a young age, and this led her to marry her partner almost out of obligation. For years, she has repeatedly told me that she regrets having missed out on that carefree stage that many enjoy in their early 20s. She constantly regrets not having been able to enjoy parties or live for herself before taking on so many responsibilities. So I wasn't totally surprised when she started suggesting to her husband that they have an open marriage. This proposal generated a lot of tension, eventually leading to her husband deciding to end the relationship. Apart from receiving child support, my sister-in-law did not get much after the divorce, and, to complicate her situation further, she was unemployed, which forced her to return to my mother-in-law's house. Seeing her in this difficult situation, both my husband and I tried to encourage her to look for work. We wanted to see her recover, and I even spent time improving her CV to increase her job prospects. After much persistence, she finally got a job in a nearby restaurant. It was a positive step forward, but the establishment was quite far from where she lived. Without her own vehicle, she had to use public transport every day to get to and from work. As a divorced mother raising 2 young children on her own, I felt empathy for her. The daily bus trip not only consumed her time, but also added additional stress to her already complicated life. During my university years, my dad gave me his old car. He had invested a lot in renovating it, and it became a car he loved. I used it for many years and accumulated countless memories with it. This year I bought a new car, but I couldn't part with the old one. It was still working perfectly, and we decided to keep it for emergencies. Occasionally my husband or I would drive it when our usual vehicles were being repaired. Reflecting on my sister-in-law's situation, I realized that this car could significantly transform her life. The bus trip robbed her of valuable time that she could spend with her children or simply resting after work. After consulting with my husband, we decided to give her my old car, totally free. The vehicle was in excellent condition, and we even made sure to fill the tank completely before handing it over to her. Today we took the car to my mother-in-law's house when my sister-in-law was there. When we gave her the keys and explained that it now belonged to her, she was totally shocked. She knows how much the car means to me, so it was a really emotional moment. She was pleasantly surprised and touched by our gesture. After thinking about what had happened, she sincerely thanked us and happily accepted our gift. It felt really good to be able to help her and ease her difficult situation a little. However, today, less than 24 hours after giving the car to my sister-in-law, I received a call from my mother-in-law. Before I tell you what she said, I should explain something about her personality because it is relevant to this situation. My mother-in-law can be extremely unpleasant to people. From our first meeting, I remember perfectly how disrespectful and contemptuous she was towards me. She made such a strong impression that I will never forget her. Over time, my husband has shared stories about her behavior, and apparently this is nothing new. Both he and his sister have learned to tolerate her because, as he says, that's just how she is. My mother-in-law always seems angry or irritated about something. She doesn't hesitate to shout at anyone, whether they are family, strangers, or employees simply doing their job. For example, if we take her to a restaurant, she will criticize insignificant details just to have an excuse to scold the waiter. If we go to a park, she will get annoyed with children playing and end up shouting at their parents for not controlling them properly. They even cause scandals over issues such as ambient noise or weather conditions, as if the world should adapt to their preferences. Another characteristic of hers is her apparent lack of awareness of how her actions affect others. She plays videos or music on her phone at full volume, even in public places or when others are trying to relax. If we kindly ask her to use headphones, she immediately becomes defensive and starts yelling at us, as if we were the unreasonable ones. And it doesn't end there. She can be incredibly ignorant and inappropriate, making random offensive comments towards people of color or those she perceives as different. The worst part is that she acts as if these comments are harmless, minimizing them as if they don't matter, even when she has clearly made everyone around her uncomfortable. Her behavior is a constant source of stress for my husband and me, but we have generally learned to choose our battles when interacting with her. Because of this history with my mother-in-law, I try to avoid her as much as I can. However, to be honest, the feeling is mutual. She doesn't like me very much either. From her perspective, I represent the complete opposite of her values. She has made it very clear that she disapproves of my lifestyle and the decisions that my husband and I have made together. For example, I earn more than my husband, something that she finds absolutely unacceptable, as she believes that the man should always be the breadwinner. In addition, we have a cook and domestic staff who take care of all our household chores. I don't lift a finger to clean or cook, and my husband never complains about this. In fact, he is completely satisfied with our lifestyle, but for her, this arrangement is improper. What really infuriates her, however, is our decision not to have children. She simply cannot understand why a couple would choose to remain childless. For this reason, we enjoy spending our money on ourselves, traveling, dining out, enjoying hobbies that we like, something that she deeply detests. She considers it selfish and believes that I have corrupted her son's mind with these ideas. She is convinced that before he met me, my husband wanted a traditional life, with children and a wife completely dedicated to the home. At the beginning of our relationship, he constantly pressured me to get pregnant. He kept insisting on how meaningless a woman's life is without children, how I would regret it if I didn't have them, and how it was my duty to give him grandchildren. When I stood firm and made it clear that I would not change my mind, she became even more unpleasant. Instead of accepting our decision, she told the whole family that I was infertile and that her poor son, referring to my husband, was suffering because of me. She presented it as if I were physically incapable of having children and that the decision not to have them was not mutual, but entirely my fault. This caused a huge argument, and luckily my husband defended me by making it clear to everyone that the decision not to have children was a shared one. He told his mother directly that he was as committed to a childless life as I was. He was also furious with her for trying to damage my reputation and place all the blame on me. Although I appreciated his support, the situation left a bitter taste. Even after the conflict, my mother-in-law never apologized for her actions. Not once did she admit her mistake or try to reconcile, and since then she has practically ignored me, which honestly seems perfect to me because I do exactly the same. At this point, we both keep our distance, and I'm fine with that. Returning to the call I received today from my mother-in-law, I must confess that I was surprised to see her name on the screen. She normally contacts my husband if she needs to communicate something, especially since our relationship is not a close one, but I decided to answer thinking it might be important. However, as soon as I said hello, she began an angry speech at full volume. She yelled at me, accusing me of having the audacity to give her daughter a battered car. According to her, the mere offer of such a vehicle was an insult. She kept repeating that her daughter was not a poor damsel in distress, and that I had no right to denigrate her by giving her what she described as a dilapidated wreck. I tried to remain calm and explain gently that, although the car was old, it was still in perfect working order. My husband and I drove it regularly when we needed an extra vehicle, so it wasn't dilapidated or unreliable. We really wanted to help my sister-in-law by making her daily commute easier, which is why we decided to give her the car. But my mother-in-law refused to listen to my explanations. She interrupted me, starting to shout again, saying that if we really wanted to help, we should have bought her a new car, because according to her, my daughter deserves the best. Her tone and sense of entitlement took me completely by surprise. At that moment, I firmly but politely reminded her that my sister-in-law could eventually save up to buy her own vehicle. Helping her did not mean that it was our responsibility to give her something new. This car represented a practical solution to her current situation, and that was the intention behind the gift. My mother-in-law, of course, was not satisfied with my response, and argued that we were being stingy and that the money saved by not raising children could be better used taking care of her daughter, who, in her words, was now suffering so much. Hearing her say that made me roll my eyes so intensely that I was surprised I couldn't feel it over the phone. Let's not forget that my sister-in-law is not exactly an innocent victim in her situation. She ended her marriage by demanding an open relationship from her loyal husband. And now, when my husband and I were trying hard to help her, my mother-in-law had the audacity to turn our generosity into a complaint and act as if we should offer her daughter something more luxurious. It was frustrating, to say the least. My mother-in-law's sense of entitlement never ceases to amaze me. I told her that I would pass on her message to her son, and I also made it clear that I planned to talk directly to my sister-in-law about the situation. I wanted to hear for myself if she really shared these feelings. After all, when we handed over the car yesterday, she seemed genuinely grateful, even pleasantly surprised by the gesture. But now, after my mother-in-law's outburst, I felt the need to verify. I wanted to know if my sister-in-law shared this perception of the car as some kind of insult, or if this was simply my mother-in-law being dramatic as usual. My mother-in-law then ended the call in indignation, practically slamming the phone down. Her attitude irritated me. The whole situation is frustrating because what was intended as a kind and helpful gesture has now been twisted into something negative, and I don't appreciate ingratitude. So am I the bad guy for giving my old car to my sister-in-law in her time of need? Update 1. Well, after reading all your comments and reflecting deeply, I decided to step back and handle the situation carefully. The first thing I knew I needed to do was to wait until I could talk to my husband. I didn't want to jump to conclusions or act impulsively, especially since this whole situation had left me feeling frustrated and confused. When my husband and I got home from work, I asked him to sit down so I could explain everything that had happened. I told him how his mother had called me that day and practically reprimanded me for giving my old car to his sister. I shared how she considered it an insult and even suggested that I should have bought her a new one. My husband's reaction was almost identical to mine. He was perplexed by his mother's demanding attitude. He couldn't believe her nerve, especially considering that we were only trying to help his sister. After listening to me, my husband decided to address the situation directly. He picked up the phone and called his sister, inviting her to lunch at our house the following day. We both agreed that a face-to-face conversation would be the best way to handle this. That way we could clarify everything, hear her side of the story, and make sure there were no misunderstandings about the car or the intentions behind our gift. We want to make it clear that we gave her the car as a kindness and to help her through this difficult time, not because we considered her poor or anything like that, as my mother-in-law suggested. If there is any confusion, or if our actions were misinterpreted, we want to sort it out with her. Update 2. Today my sister-in-law visited our house for lunch, and honestly, it felt like an important encounter. Thanks to the old car we had given her, she was able to bring her 2 children. The little ones seemed happy playing in our back garden. Hearing her say this left us both shocked, as we thought we had made a kind and useful gesture, but there she was, basically confirming my mother-in-law's demanding attitude. In that moment, her ingratitude became painfully evident. We had made an effort to help her through a difficult time, and instead of appreciating our effort and consideration, she focused on what we didn't do. It was painful, to say the least, and it made us question whether helping her had been worth all this drama. This situation was starting to irritate me deeply. My sister-in-law's attitude showed a complete lack of appreciation for our actions. She treated my beloved old car, my only memory of my father, as if it were below her expectations. I felt that she didn't perceive it as a thoughtful and practical gift, but as something she deserved simply because it came from us. I had given it to her sincerely, hoping to make her life easier, but now I felt that she despised the gesture. If that was how she really felt, then why on earth should I continue trying to help her? Besides, why were my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law so obsessed with our money? Did they really believe that we had unlimited resources to splash out with? Both my husband and I work extremely hard for everything we have. Every penny we earn comes from countless hours dedicated to our jobs. However, because we are family, do they think they are entitled to the fruits of our labor? Fed up with their ingratitude, I told him straight that he was right. We shouldn't have given him my old car. If he considered it unworthy, then he should return the keys after lunch because I no longer felt comfortable giving it to him. His face showed surprise, and he immediately argued that it was more insulting to take the car back. He didn't understand why I would want to take back something I had given her to help her, but I stood my ground, saying that those in need don't get to choose. He was in no position to complain about something intended as a kind gesture. I told him that if he couldn't show gratitude for the help he had received, especially during this difficult period, then he had no right to complain. My sister-in-law then really tried to argue that I didn't even need the car and suggested that I should sell it and give her the money to start saving for a new one. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was essentially asking me to sell something with sentimental value to me and give her the proceeds. As if it were a reasonable request, her level of demand was unbelievable, and I couldn't contain my frustration any longer. Fortunately, my husband intervened before the situation escalated. He told her clearly that her request was ridiculous and that she had crossed a line. He reminded her that, although we had tried to help and be kind up until now, we would not offer any more assistance in the future, and that, from that moment on, she and her children would have to fend for themselves. We had finished trying to be conciliatory, trying to help someone who clearly did not value our efforts. My husband backed me up, and I was relieved to see him defending me so clearly. This upset my sister-in-law, who began to raise her voice, calling us mean. She insisted that we could easily just give her money instead of making her and her children suffer so much. Honestly, I was surprised how quickly she went from attacking us to attacking us directly for trying to help her. My husband, equally irritated, tried to make the point that she was an adult and needed to take responsibility for her own life and her children. But my sister-in-law completely rejected this. She argued that families should support each other, and instead of working in a low-paid restaurant, she thought her brother should send her money every month for her expenses. How dare she? Then, my husband really set limits. He told her that he would not give her money every month, so that she could stay at home doing nothing. He explained that if she wanted to improve her situation and seek higher education or training to get a better job, he would be happy to help, but he would not give her money for no reason. Honestly, I was starting to feel like I was seeing a completely different side of my sister-in-law. Maybe it was always there, but now it was evident. Before, I could understand how she might have depended on her ex-husband for everything, so she hadn't really cared how much money we had. But now that she was divorced, she suddenly seemed very interested in what we could offer her. It was frustrating, to say the least. My sister-in-law seemed furious with us. She clearly had no desire to stay for lunch or to continue talking. She quickly gathered her children, muttered a few words, and left. She left behind the key to my car, the only thing that mattered to me at that moment. Later that day, I received a long message from her, and reading it only increased my indignation. She went on and on about how selfish we were, and how a few $100s a month would help her and her children enormously. She almost pleaded in her message, complaining that her brother had so much while she, as her sister, had nothing. The whole tone suggested that she thought we owed her something, as if her situation was our responsibility. It was outrageous to read. I couldn't believe how demanding she sounded, how completely unaware she was that we were under no obligation to give her anything at all, and that she had the audacity to say that we had so much money when we were obviously working extremely hard for what we had, made it all the more irritating. At that point, I simply got fed up with the whole situation and ignored her messages. Update 3. Some time has passed. Honestly, we are still not sure if we are ready to completely cut ties with my sister-in-law or mother-in-law. The whole situation weighs heavily on us. We feel some empathy for my sister-in-law, especially because, although she has been ungrateful and somewhat demanding, she is not as terrible as my mother-in-law. However, there is a nagging feeling that if we start helping her now, she might expect more and more from us, and that worries us both. It's true that we could easily send her a few $100s a month, but there's really no guarantee that she would use the money wisely. Would she spend it on really important things, like her children's needs or improving her situation? Or would she just waste it and come back asking for more? We don't want to allow her to continue depending on us when she could be making a real effort to stand on her own 2 feet. As for her children, of course we love them and we care about them. We have always given them expensive gifts at Christmas and birthdays, and if they ever need money for university or something important in the future, we will definitely be there to help. But right now, our focus is on making sure that her mother learns to be more self-sufficient. The reality is that my sister-in-law already has quite a few advantages. She lives rent-free, something that many would like. My husband also sends my mother-in-law money every month to help with bills and household expenses, so she's not struggling in that respect. In addition, her children's expenses are covered by their father. All she has to do is work and earn a living. It doesn't seem unreasonable to ask that of an adult. We feel that she must stop depending on everyone else and take control of her own life. In the end, we both just want her to take responsibility for her future. We are willing to support her emotionally and help when we can, but we don't want her to fall into the trap of thinking that she deserves to receive financial help just because she is family. It's a complicated situation, and we're still not sure how we'll proceed, but we definitely want her to learn to stand on her own 2 feet. Furthermore, after that conversation with my sister-in-law, my mother-in-law tried to call and urge my husband to give in to my sister-in-law's demands. She pointed out how we were being too hard and that families should support each other, especially in difficult times. She constantly mentioned how my sister-in-law was suffering, and, as her brother, my husband should do more to help her. My mother-in-law insisted that this was not about charity, but about family unity. My husband told his mother straight that, although he understood his sister's difficulties, he could not just throw money at the problem and solve it. He said that, from now on, we would not be manipulated by guilt or demands. We would help when necessary, but we would no longer be treated as an endless resource. Update 4. It's been almost 4 months since my last update, and I just wanted to briefly let you know how things have been going. After everything that has happened, my sister-in-law has finally decided what to do with her future. She has chosen to pursue a career in digital marketing. Honestly, this is a bit of a relief because it seems like she is taking a real step towards improving her situation. We were really worried that she would continue to depend on others without making an effort to fend for herself. But this decision shows that she is trying to take control of her career and her life. She has been researching courses and programs, and, from what we have heard, she seems quite committed. I must admit that it represents a big change from a few months ago, when we doubted whether she would ever make a genuine effort to improve her situation. My husband and I are hopeful that this decision will help her become more independent, and, honestly, I feel somewhat proud of taking this step. It is an ongoing process, but we are optimistic that she is on the right track. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that she persists.